gonna record it to my computer, Lord,
Yeah,
and you
that's
could
what I'll do
record
as
one
well.
and, okay,
We'll just have a
and,
backup just in case. You never know.
okay,
I have a
and
question.
We'll
Will
get into
you
the book,
post?
Vanessa.
I'm sorry,
Will you
what?
guys post that on YouTube, the session today, or not so much?
I'm gonna send it to anyone who signed up, and then we're going to cut down various answers of bills, and we're gonna post it inside sooner. So instead of it taking you an hour to watch it, it'll take less time, and it'll be there forever for anyone who belongs to Discover Sooner in our archives of stuff like that. But anyone who attends tonight will send you the raw footage in this thing. Sound good?
Sure.
Yeah,
Thanks.
sounds good. I just have one suggestion for you, Nancy, because I always do this. You should send me some slides with all your sponsors, Dave Lenihan's, connection, Songwriters Connection, and just slides so I can put them at the beginning of my slides.
Okay, I can make you a
We'll
slide
show
real
all the
fast.
sponsors.
Okay,
We'll show all the sponsors.
Okay.
But for future things, you can put them in the replay. Just put those slides in the replay.
okay, I will do that. Thank you so much. It's a great
Good.
idea. And everybody mute
Nancy and I are
yourself.
always talking about marketing and how to be more effective at communicating. So
Right. So everybody mute yourself, and I think that I'm gonna pin Bill. Do you think I need to pin you? I'm
I'm going to share my screen, so I'm not
Okay.
sure. We'll
Okay.
all go over to the side depending on how you have your thing set up or what device you're looking on. But we'll be looking at the slides, and maybe you'll see me on the side, and maybe you'll see other people.
Okay.
But it's mostly going to be slides, and then I'll come out of that and I'll answer a few questions.
Okay, that sounds really good. I'm gonna mute myself, and you're
All right, great. Here we go. So, all right, here we go. Sorry. Get rid of that, and I'm going to do this. All right, now I can see a few of you on my side. So can you give me a thumbs up if you can see that slide? All right, good. And you can still hear me, I assume, since I saw some thumbs go up. I think that answers that question. So I'm going to make these slides, a PDF of these slides, available to Nancy, and she can put them near the presentation or send them out when she sends out the replay for those of you signed up. And even if you're here live, if you have to leave a little early, there'll be a replay, and Nancy will let you know about that. So you will get this information, and the slides will have some details in there. If I go quickly, which I will, you can go back and look at them. So, and I'm okay if you share these slides with other people who weren't in the presentation, but don't share the presentation with people who aren't signed up. Okay. So yeah, I did write a book, co-wrote a book, talking about co-writing with Marty Dodson and Clay Mills, who are two Nashville hit songwriters. They've each had a bunch of #1s and a bunch of cuts, a bunch of songs recorded with major artists. And when I got to Nashville and I really plunged into the whole world of songwriting there, I found out that everyone was co-writing, and I said to them, there's no books about co-writing. There was one about 25 years ago, and it's out of print. I said, co-writing is so important, and there are some things that people really need to know about it to do it well. And they said, oh, you think there's a hole in the market? I said, yep. And they said, well, let's write that book. And so that's what we did. So there's a lot more detail in this book. If you want to get it, it's on Kindle, and it's also, you can get it through Amazon and any of the booksellers. It was published by Songtown Press, which is represented by Book Baby. Some of you use CD Baby for your music. The Book Baby is one of their companion companies. And so you can go directly on Book Baby if you don't like to go on Amazon or some of those sites, and you can buy it from there. There's an e-version and there's a print version. Why co-write? I'm going to give you a bunch of reasons. First of all, Lennon and McCartney. They wrote a lot more songs together than they would have written alone. Elton John and Bernie Taupin. Sometimes you get with people that have skills that you don't have. Elton John is a melodic genius. And I saw one time he was doing a presentation, and someone brought a manual for their microwave oven and said, please make a song of this. He opened it to a random page and started singing like a hit melody to the words that were in the manual for, a microwave oven. It's just insane. He has these great skills, and Bernie Taupman had great lyrical skills. So they joined together. Same with Rodgers and Hammerstein, Burt Bacharach and Hal David. Carole King and Jerry Goffin both did music, but Jerry Goffin mostly did words. Max Martin has collaborated with a bunch of people and gotten more number ones than most people on the planet. So you can tap into different strengths and complementary strengths. You find sparks and energy and inspiration. Sometimes I'm not feeling particularly inspired, and I'll go into a session co-writing with someone, and they will sing something, play something, say something that I'm just like, wait, that. And then boom, we're off to the races. If I were waiting for that inspiration to come, maybe I'd get it. Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe it would come spontaneously. Maybe it wouldn't. And so you're making an appointment with the muse. When I make a 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the morning appointment with people to co-write, I'm saying, hey, muse, I'm getting ready. I'm going to go and meet with these people or this person, and I'm counting on you to show up when I do that. And I learned that because I've written 40 books. I don't always feel inspired to write. But I found when I developed a habit of sitting down, one famous writer said, I can only write when I'm inspired. And I make sure that I'm inspired at 9 o'clock every morning when I sit down at my computer or my typewriter. And so I think co-writing is a lot like that. It's actually a little easier than sitting down at a typewriter to write a book. You get instant feedback and editing. Sometimes when I'm writing a song, it's good, it's really good, but it's not great yet. And when I wrote my books, I would send them off to an editor, usually in New York City, and I would get the book back with a bunch of red pencil marks. And the book would always be better after I was edited. And I learned how to write better prose by working with these English major editors who'd edit me from New York, and they'd send it back. But it took me a month to get the book back. In this co-writing session, there's instant feedback and editing, unless you're going by email and you're just exchanging files. Usually co-writing is over Zoom or in person, and you get instant feedback and editing, and someone go, that line's kind of cheesy, or, I think that melody could be a little better. How about this? And it's faster songwriting. I occasionally, I'm sure some of you have, you just get a download of a song. It happens on occasion, but it didn't happen very often for me. I routinely write a full song in 3 hours, and often, depending on my co-writers, I write a song within 20 to 45 minutes when I have my magical co-writers. So it's faster songwriting. Last year, I finished 344 songs. I have some partially completed songs from last year that aren't finished yet, but I finished 344 songs. There's no way I would have been able to do that if I hadn't co-written. More universal and relatable songs, because sometimes I'm telling my own story. But if I get together with Nancy and we co-write, and we both have something in common, that is, we relate to the story, but it's not my story and it's not Nancy's story, all of a sudden it becomes a little more universal, because it's not just the details of my story or Nancy's story. We make it a little more universal, and therefore anyone could relate to that emotion and that situation. It won't just be my story. More chances for your songs to be heard, pitched, and recorded. I mentioned I have 46, my 46th cut is coming out, and I've only been really seriously writing for a few years, and my 46th cut is coming out, and I wouldn't have gotten most of those cuts if it weren't for my co-writers. They either had a connection to an artist, they pitched it to an artist, they were an artist themselves and recorded it and released it. In most of my co-writing cohorts and groups, I am the pitcher. I pitch every morning. I get on my computer and I pitch, and I go to pitch meetings in the evenings. And so most of my co-writers count on me to pitch. Hopefully they're pitching as well. I play my songs out, and sometimes when I play them out and someone says, I want to record that song. So I play them when I go to Nashville and occasionally here in New Mexico. It's also fun. If you co-write, you'll find there's a lot of fun. Free therapy. I used to be a therapist, and I'm telling you, some of those the co-writing sessions are like group therapy sessions. You get really deep and really real with people because you're trying to dig down into your heart and tell the truth, the emotional truth about things. And sometimes you reveal things you don't reveal to your partner. You don't reveal to your friends, your outside friends outside of the co-writing room, because you just have to dig down. And, someone said, how do you write a great book? You slit your wrists and bleed all over the typewriter. And I think it's a little like that. You slit your wrists and bleed all over the keyboards or the guitar, because you're trying to tell a deep emotional truth, and you have to get real. And sometimes you have to get vulnerable with those people in the room. Now, of course, you don't do that with people you don't trust or, that aren't safe. But I've told things in co-writing sessions that I wouldn't tell anybody else. And that sometimes are a little embarrassing or a little vulnerable. And I've made lifelong friends. I was a therapist for 40 years. So you can imagine what age I am. Most men do not make new friendships in their 50s and 60s. They just don't. They get more and more isolated as their friends disappear for one reason or another. And I have made so many more new friends writing. Sometimes I write virtually and sometimes I write in person. And I have some dear friends, Nancy being one of them. We've become really good friends, through songwriting. I didn't expect that. And I wasn't really looking for friendships, but when they happen, you find the people you really vibe with. It's cool. So I'll just give you my argument, because some people know I only write songs on my own and it's a very personal and vulnerable thing. I can't imagine how I write with someone else. When I came to Nashville, people just said, you got to co-write, you just do. That's what people do here. And that's how they get hit songs. And I'm like, I've only written on my own. I wrote on my own for 40 years. And I was like, how do you do that? But I was convinced, because if you do some research, in the 1960s, hit songs, top 10 songs, had an average of 1.87 writers. That is, some of them are written on their own. Some of them are written with 2 or 3 writers. Again, you get the famous ones, Lennon, McCartney, Goffin, and King, Burt Bacharach and Hal David. In the 1970s, it went up to 1.95 writers on average. In the 1980s, 1.95. All of a sudden, in the 1990s, when pop started doing this, a lot more, there were 3.13 writers per hit song, top 10 song. In the 2000s, it was 3.5. In the 2010s, it was 4.7. An average of 5.34 writers wrote the 100 biggest hits of 2018. So the trend is that. Here's how crazy it got. Travis Scott, featuring Drake's 2018 monster hit Sicko Mode, has 30 writers credited. Now, some of those are producers. Some of those are people who came up with a bridge, or, it's like crazy. They give a lot of people credit these days, but 30 writers. Now, it was a monster hit and they all made money. Some of them made 2% of that money. Now, in Nashville, we have a typical thing. If there's 3 people in the room, you get a third each. In LA, they fight about it. So that's a different matter, but we'll get into that in a little while. Oh, sorry. So how do you find co-writers? It's like dating. You have to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince or princess. Sometimes you'll get in a room and the people are good writers. They're fine people, and we just don't click. It's just like dating in that way. It's like, you're a fine person. I don't want to go out with you again. Or you're not a fine person. I don't want to go out with you. Sometimes you get people that are nightmares. And I've heard a lot from young women writers that they go into writing rooms and guys hit on them. And that makes them really uncomfortable. You're not there to have sex or make a relationship, that kind of romantic relationship. You're there to write a song, and you should be professional. But sometimes it just doesn't click. You can find people in open mics and songwriter rounds. That's why living in Nashville, those of you who live in Nashville, is great. Or those of you who live in New York City, you have places where you can go and see a lot of songwriters. And if you hear somebody and you say, whoa, I love that person's voice, or wow, the way they played guitar, or wow, that song they played, that blew me away. I go up to those people routinely and I say, hey, do you ever co-write? And I give them my card. And these days I have books. I can give them one of my songwriting books. And I can say, if you ever want to co-write, contact me, because I think, we could do really well together. I meet people on songwriting rounds where we're all playing on the same round. I hear their songs and I think, wow, I think we could do really well together. Or they're really great singer and their songs suck. If they had great songs, this person could be, a hit artist, but their songs aren't that good. They need us as songwriters. And so online communities like Discover Sooner, there's a place to connect with people in Discover Sooner. And Nancy, as she said, is going to make a very formal place to connect with co-writers. But I've been in some programs that Nancy has where she throws you together and she figures out who's the lyricist, who's the melody person, and who's the track person. And she throws three people together. I wrote with people I'd never written with, and we came up with great songs. We did it online during the pandemic. So songwriting events. I've been to songwriting in-person events. Durango Songwriters Expo is a great one. And you sit at night, or you either hear the open mics at night or the showcases, or you sit in the lobby of the hotel and you play songs to each other and you meet songwriters. And I've started to co-write with some of those people. Live bands and performers. You go out and see a live band, and again, maybe they're a great band and their songs are just mediocre. And you go, hey, you ever need songs or you ever want to co-write? And you go up to them, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Established and pro writers want to write with you because they're all out of ideas. Most of the pro writers I know in Nashville have written 3,000 to 5,000 songs. You write that many songs, and it's hard to find a new idea you haven't written. I go into pro writers sometimes and I go, I've got this title. And they go, yeah, I wrote it. And then the other pro writer says, yeah, I wrote that too. You think, what? I thought it was a totally unique title. And it wasn't. They've written almost everything. So if you come up with a really good idea, melodically, lyrically, or title-wise, or a spin on an idea, they're like, yes, I know how to turn that into a great song. So they need you for your ideas. With track people, there are people who are great at writing tracks and they're not good at writing lyrics. I just wrote with somebody the other day and he's like, this is so great. I'm working on the track. And I was with another lyricist and he said, you two are writing these great lyrics on top of what I'm doing. I love this. And meanwhile, he was trying to put a drum beat in, he was putting the piano. And I was like, this is perfect because we're happy. Once we got a melody, we can just start to play with the lyrics. So that's called top lining in the business. Somebody who puts a melody or lyrics on top of a track, a musical bed. All right. And they're looking for you sometimes. So you have to find your role as a co-writer. What happened when I went to Nashville? I'd never co-written, as I mentioned. And then the person that Nancy and I know, Sharice Poltori, she'd hear my songs. She goes, Bill, these are really good songs. They could be great. You need to co-write. And I'm like, yeah, I know I need to co-write. But I didn't know how to co-write. And I didn't know with whom to co-write. And then I took a class on co-writing. And the people said, find what your role as a co-writer, what strength you bring that is your best strength. Because I'd written the lyrics, the melody, I play the instruments, and I come up with the ideas, every song I'd ever written. So I was like, well, what do I specialize in? Because I do it all. And some people are, pitch hitters, they can, switch hitters, they can switch to different roles. And some people do that. But most of the time, you get known as something really good. What I found after I'd co-written for 2 years, I just kept paying attention to what happened in the room. No matter who I was with, I would tend to bring the title idea. And almost always we would go with my title idea. I'd say 96% of the time, my co-writers would take my titles. And then once there was a melody, I loved working with melody people who were melodic geniuses. I could play a couple of chords on the guitar and they would sing something that sounded like a hit song to me. So I'm like, that's the people I want to work with. And then I would be very fast at writing lyrics. And it's nice for me to have another person in there who then edits those lyrics and makes sure they're better than the ones I put in, or make sure I don't make mistakes like switching from she to you, and switching voices in the middle of a song because I get so fast. I'm a really fast lyric writer. So what is your specialty? Do you bring ideas and titles or slants on an idea or a title? Do you bring melodies? Is that your genius? Do you bring chords and riff? I often do that too. I bring a chord and a riff about half the time to my co-writes. Do you bring tracks? if you've got that skill, you're going to be in demand, because tracks, it's a little technical and some people get all intimidated by that. But if you're a great track writer or creator, you'll be in demand as a co-writer. Do you do editing and cheerleading? I work with a person, Lucy LeBlanc, and she does a lot of, wow, that's a great line, or, nah, I think we could do better than that line. It seems a little cheesy. I've noticed she does a lot of that role in the room. Are you a group's dynamics management? I work with two people that I write with a lot, and one of them is introverted and shy, and he's a great writer. And we'll be going on, and he won't have said a word for 20 minutes. And I'll just turn to him and say, Trevor, I bet you have a way to sing this line. And he'll kind of, yeah. And I go, well, sing it how you would sing it. He'd sing it. And then the other two of us would go, that's the line. That is the way to sing that line. But unless I bring him out, he might just stay silent most of the time. He'll come in eventually, but we're going to miss that and go off on some tangent where he could have done it. So you got to be sensitive to the dynamics in the room and make sure everybody has room, that nobody dominates too much. I mean, if somebody's on a roll, you let them go, but generally be careful about one person dominating or two people dominating. And also, how do you create a room? Again, my friend and co-writer, Lucy LeBlanc, she knows how to bring people together, and she creates rooms all the time, and she's a genius at it. Sometimes she messes up, but once she knows the room is good, we'll make that a team. Again, you can be a switch hitter, but I suspect most of you are going to be specialized in something, and you won't know that until you start to co-write a lot. And then all of a sudden, everybody will say, hey, Jim, do that thing that that melody thing you do, like, here's some chords, do that. And I do that with some of my co-writers. I go, okay, yeah, here's the idea. Okay, here's the chords. Now, Jim, do that melody thing. And they all laugh and they go like, what? I don't know. And I go, come on, don't be, hiding your light under a bushel barrel. You are a great melody person. I'm playing these chords again and again. I want to hear what melody you come up with. And then, of course, they do, because they are good at it. But some people do switch around to different roles, and I do that. But again, if I had my ideal team that I had to put together, somebody who's great with melody, I'll bring in a title or an idea. I'll bring in a riff on piano or guitar. And then we have another lyric person from me, or another melody person who can help us get that melody the best they can, or a track person. That's my ideal thing. Maximizing your success during co-writes. I wrote another book with Marty Dodson, one of those guys that I wrote the co-writing book with. And Marty has this really great idea that's been massively helpful in my co-writes and made them go a lot more smoothly and a lot more quickly. He calls it song blueprinting. That is, when I used to write books in psychotherapy and self-help, my first book took 3 years, metaphorically, blood on the keyboards. I hated every minute of it. My second book took 9 months. I co-wrote the first book. I wrote it on my own, and it was a lot easier. And after I did a few more books, I realized what the difference between book number 1 and book number 2 was. Book number 1, I was co-writing, and we were working out what we were going to put in the book while we were writing it. Book number 2, I'd done a workshop on that topic maybe 50 times, and I had a really clear sequence and outline for that workshop. And I just translate that into a book. I had a super clear outline, and that book was so much easier to write, even though I wasn't much of a writer at that time. And that's what Marty said about song blueprinting. That is, sitting down, once you come up with the idea, the basics of the song, sit down and write a blueprint. What's in verse 1? What's in the chorus? What's in verse 2? What's in a bridge, if you have a bridge? And you just write a 1-sentence phrase, or even less than a sentence, if you can do it in 5 or 10 words, what that verse is about, what that chorus is about, what that bridge is about, what verse 2 is about. You'll see, oh, we have an idea. There's no verse 2. You ever get to verse 2 and you go, what the hell do I put in here? Because I already shot my wad in verse 1. I put every great idea in verse 1. You won't do that if you do song blueprinting. So we detail that in this book called Song Building. Has a bunch of other stuff in there as well about furniture and stuff like that. We use the metaphor of building a house, that a song is like a house, and it's got furniture in it. It's got a blueprint before you start, and then it's got a foundation. You know, there are various metaphors that we use in there, and a structure, that kind of stuff. So song blueprinting, I found when I co-write, sometimes people do this naturally. They sort of know what the flow of the song is, but sometimes you get 3/4 of the way into the song, and some people, one of the co-writers thinks it's about a breakup, and the other one thinks about they end up together in the end. And if you haven't blueprinted that, you're going in opposite directions with the second verse or the bridge. So it's a good idea to blueprint it out. So how to maximize your success during co-writes? Do that song blueprinting. The song rules are the egos take a back seat. Nobody says like, no, my line is really good. We need to put that line in there. No, always the song wins rather than any individual songwriter. So the ego takes a back seat, that it wasn't your line or your melody or the thing you prefer. It's always what's best for the song. Show up prepared and on time. I've had so many people show up unprepared and not on time, or not even show up as at the time they said they were going to show up. Nancy, you did that once. You were thinking we were going to be at someplace else, and you go, oh, I realize you're at your new place or something like that, and you called and you were only like 10 minutes late, so that was good. But that's a relatively minor offense, I can tell you, because I've had people not show up, or show up an hour late, or show up high or drunk, or whatever, just in a mess, not having gotten any sleep the night before because they were out partying, stuff like that. And when you're there, be in the room. No texting, surfing the web, taking calls, unless it's an emergency, obviously. Know yourself and your co-writers. Once you write with people a few times, you really know, and then dare to suck. Be in a room where it's safe enough to actually suck at what you do, because it's that safe place where you can say stupid things that might cue off your co-writer and say, that sucks, but how about this based on that idea? Or that sucks, but that shows us what not to do. Now let's see what we can do. And then every once in a while, sometimes you just get so focused on it and you're stuck, you just get up and take a walk. Or, there's a famous songwriter in Nashville that once he gets the idea, he just gets up without saying anything to his co-writers, walks around for a half an hour and comes back in with a verse and a chorus. And, so Craig Wiseman, he's known for that. At first, when you write with him, it's like, what the heck? But little breaks, we joke about that. Someone goes to the bathroom, they come back and go, I know the line. And we call those epiphanies, because, they go out and they're not so focused on the song, and their unconscious mind comes to the foreground because now they're focused on something else. And boom, the line comes, or the melody comes, or whatever it may be. So take breaks every once in a while if you need to. Get up, stretch, walk around, go to the bathroom, go get a snack, or whatever it may be.
Okay, I'd like to break in here for 1 minute and say,
Good.
being prepared, go in the room with ideas. Okay, if any idea,
Right.
if it's a verse, a line, it's in the verse, or a title for the chorus, a melody that you can just bring something. It's like potluck. Bring something and share it with your people.
Yeah, stone soup. And it's, they've always said about book writing, it's way easier to edit something on the screen than to sit and stare at the blank screen with the cursor just looking at you, staring you in the face. You got nothing, So if everybody brings something, even if it's not the right idea, it may stimulate somebody else's idea. So yeah, bring a title, bring a melody, bring an instrumental thing. If you sit down and create an instrumental thing, record it on your phone and bring it. Remember it. If you bring that, almost always the co-write will go a little faster and a little better. Now, sometimes things just occur in the room, but as Nancy said, don't count on that, because sometimes you're sitting there staring at 3 people, in a round robin staring contest, and it is excruciating. It's no fun. So if at least you bring something, even if it's not the right thing and you throw it out, it gets you started. And also it shows people you care about it and you got ready. All right, so don't come in drunk, high, or hungover. Well, I sometimes have written with people who are like, no, 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 no. And I've learned to say, great, okay, if it's no, what do you got? Put something in there. Don't just say no to it. You got to have a yes that we can say yes to, something we can say yes to. I've stopped writing with some people who are rigid and flexible and insist, no, that line has to be in there. And I'm like, I love some of my lines. And Hemingway said, kill your babies. Sometimes you have to throw out the best thing you ever wrote because it doesn't fit with this song in this place. And some people are so rigid and flexible. I just don't want to write with them anymore because it gets in the way of the song. I have a friend, and I know he will remain nameless, but he is such a social person that we end up talking for 2.5 hours, and then we have a half an hour to write the song in a 3-hour session. And you got to manage it. Talking is good because you got to relate to each other and get to know each other. Too much talking with no writing is not a good thing. Somebody dominating the situation, communication diplomacy. If you can't be there or if something messes up, you just be as diplomatic and as kind and generous as you can. And then breaking up. I was a shy kid in high school and I was sort of geeky. And I didn't go out on that many dates. And I now feel bad for the pretty girls in high school because I've had to break up with people. And, you want to say, I'm washing my hair on Friday night, I'm washing my hair on Saturday night, you want to be kind about it, but sometimes people just persist. I had a guy, I finally said, do not ask me to co-write anymore. I do not want to co-write. He was so persistent and so obnoxious about it. But I've had people that I've written with a bunch and it's just not happening. And after like 4 or 5 sessions, I'll just say, I don't want to do this anymore. And man, I've had people be so hurt. And I'm just like, it's not that you're not a good songwriter. It's just that it's not there. And I know it's not there because the magic is there in other ones. And I give it a few sessions, 3 or 4 sessions, and it's just not happening. And those people write good songs with other people sometimes. I hear those songs and those are good songs. And we wrote okay songs, but they didn't knock my socks off. And I didn't have fun in the process and I didn't like the process. And if I'm doing this, I said I wrote 344 songs last year. I finished 344 songs. Only one I wrote on my own. I want it to be fun and great when I write because otherwise I'll get burned out. I want to love the writing that I do. I don't want to just like it. If I'm going to do it that much, and if I'm aiming to be a commercial songwriter, which I am, I want it to be great. Decide the splits before you write. Again, in Nashville, it's sort of understood. If there's 3 people in the room, it's a third. If there's 4 people in the room, it's 25% for each. If there's 2 people in the room, it's 50% for each on both the writing and the publishing side. If you don't know about that legal stuff, you should learn about it if being a songwriter. Get everyone's contact and PRO information. When I first wrote, I would have people that I now, 6 years later, when I first co-wrote, I do not know how to contact them, and I don't have their PRO information. So I can't register the song. If I like that song and I want to do something with it, we're stuck because I need that person's information to register it. I need to get in touch with that person if we're going to do a demo and we're going to co-pay for it. So I have a Google Doc, we'll talk about that in a minute, where I insist, and I can tell you some people still do not do it. I say, please put your, I'll look it up later. And they don't look it up later. And I have to bug them. It's like, I always have mine in a little Post-it note on my desk because I use Post-it notes on my little electronic Post-it notes. And I just copy it right out of there and copy it right into the Google Doc. Just get your PR, get your ducks in a row. No takebacks or reuse of titles, or rarely and with everyone's permission. I brought in a title to a hit writer and I thought it was a great title. He thought it was a great title. We wrote that song. That song sucked so badly. I hated that song. He liked it. His publisher liked it. It's been 5 years. Nothing's happened with that song. I would love to use that title again, but it's just not cool. You shouldn't use the title you wrote with someone else and go write it with someone else, or take it back and write it yourself. That's sort of the etiquette of co-writing. Just go make up a different title. Make up a new title and find a better idea. Don't interrupt the flow, even if you feel you're not contributing that much. And someone's just on a roll. I do that during co-writes. Sometimes I'll write all the lyrics within 10 or 15 minutes. And I'm just on fire. Once I hear the melodic structure, I can write really fast. If someone's on a roll like that, you can always go back and fix it. Don't interrupt the flow if you can help it. You may be on a roll, you may be on fire one of these days, and they should be quiet while you're on fire. Don't worry if the contributions are unequal. If you write with people, they'll tend to even out over time. It doesn't matter. And again, in Nashville, it doesn't matter how much of the song you write, because you get a third of the credit if there's 3 people in the room. In LA, it does matter how much you write, and I'm not going to talk about it because I hate that model. I hate the model of people and their lawyers and their managers fight it out. No, you only get 13% because my client wrote. It's like, I just don't, that kills creativity for me. I don't want to care about who put in that line or who put the melody in or whatever. I like the Nashville model a lot better. After the co-write, decide who's going to do the work tape, demo, or master. Master if you're going to release it or you're going to use it for sync. Revising and rewriting. Sometimes you'll get that white hot heat of the great idea and you'll do it as best you can, and it's not quite there. So make another appointment and rewrite it. Or one person will obsess about it and play it over and over again and say, come back to the other co-writers and say, I think this line has always bothered me. How about this line? I get that happen all the time. People, or they'll say, can we jump on and fix this song? Because I really like it, but it's not quite there. I go, sure, always, totally okay with me. And sometimes you'll spend 5 sessions working on the same song. I've just done that with Greg Wilson and Michelle Canning. We have a song that all of a sudden is getting a lot of attention, and we got a publisher who said, I think that song could take you all the way and it needs to change in this way. And we've rewritten it over the last week and a half. We've rewritten it 7 times. And we'll jump on sometimes and we'll spend an hour working on it. And then Greg will go record it and he'll work on it a little more. And then one of us will say, that line isn't right. Let's get on again. Registering the song with your PRO, good idea to register it. During the pandemic, I knew a couple of songwriters who are out of work, and oh, sorry, that's me. I have a songwriter friend who was out of work, and I just hired her to register every one of my songs, and I had more money than she did, and I was able to pay her, and I love it because all my songs got registered within a day or 2 of the time I wrote it. And that was really nice because I had been writing that many songs. I'd been backed up like 50 songs I needed to register at once, and I hated that. So, learned it. It's not that long. It doesn't take that long to do it. It's 5 minutes if you get quick at it. But once you join your PRO, pitching for artists or sync, decide who's going to pitch, if it's for sync or for artists, who's going to pitch it, where is it going to go? Sometimes you decide that when you're writing it. And for sync, which means for television and movies and commercials and video games and stuff like that, anything that's synced to video and you license it for that, decide who's going to pitch it and who has permission to pitch it and what kind of conditions you'll be able to say yes to. That's called an admin agreement. And I get to sign one for sync with any people I work with that we get a master recording. If you want to record the song, go ahead.
I just want to jump in here. And it seems to me that the biggest issue that we have is that if you're writing with an artist, it's really important to know if they want to save it for themselves or if it's okay to pitch. Because that to me seems to be the biggest rub right there. and just because they want to hog it all up for themselves does not necessarily mean that it has to be that way either. But these are important and delicate matters that you need to talk about. In general, if the artist wants to hold on to it, I'm good with it. But sometimes, Body Like a Back Road, the guys who co-wrote that song pitched it around in spite of what Sam Hunt wanted to do with that song. And he's playing.
That was actually Cop Car. Cop Car was that one. And
is that the Cop Car?
They let Keith Urban do it. And man, Sam Hunt was mad because he was about to release his first album. Now, I Like a Back Road did really well, and Cop Car did all right for him too. But they gave it to Keith. None of them had much going, and the other two writers wanted Keith Urban to do it when he was interested. Sam Hunt said, "No, I want that for my album." And you could, the thing you do have permission. Every writer has the choice not to license the song to an artist the first time before it's released the first time. And so they had a lot of going back and forth. Now that song made him a lot of money from Keith Urban and got him on the road map, got him on the map in Nashville. But I guess Sam, it took him a couple of years to get over his resentment. I heard from his two co-writers, Zach Crowell and one other co-writer, I can't remember. But yeah, if you want to record the song, you need permission and a mechanical license from your co-writers, and a work for hire side forms. If you're going to do it as an artist or as sync or whatever, you need to have all your ducks in a row. And that's, again, diplomacy and communication. Rarely does it come to that Sam Hunt situation. Most people are like, yeah, whoever wants to record it, record it. If you're the artist, you want to record it, go for it. You know, we're happy to have cuts. We want the song out in the world. But sometimes it's a matter of your cousin Joe wants to record it and Keith Urban wants to record it, and the other two co-writers going, sorry, your cousin Joe is out. We want Keith. You know, we're saving it for Keith. So you just have to communicate about that and get really clear on it. Usually that's not going to be an issue for any of us in this group, but if it's your issue, more power to you. If you have to decide between your cousin Henry and Keith Urban, that's a good thing. That's a good problem. Yeah.
I'd like to also suggest that people be mindful of or have a conversation about splitting the expenses of the demo process.
Definitely. Or the master.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Some people can't afford the master because it's more expensive typically. And I have a co-writer who's on a fixed budget. She's retired and she's on a fixed budget. And she'll say, can I own 20% of the master? And then you, the other two writers, can you both own 40%? Well, sure, we got more money. That's okay with us. But to have that discussion up front, whether you're going to demo it, if it's ready to be demoed, if it's ready to be mastered, and who's going to pay for it and who's going to do that demo. Is one of you going to sing it? Or are you going to hire a vocalist? And again, all that is that communication up front. Really, really good point.
I think also talking about the critiquing process, some co-writers are not up with the idea, obviously the less professional ones, of getting the songs professionally critiqued.
Right. Before you demo it, because I demoed way too many songs when I first came to Nashville because I fell in love with them, as we often do. And it's good to get some perspective. Now, you always have to take it with a grain of salt. Who is doing that critique? Again, you know, the more professional people can get, but even those people can be wrong. You know, publishers, artists have turned down hit songs a lot. Let's just say that they miss things, and sometimes they just nitpick, and, you know, they miss the whole point. So you always take that stuff with a grain of salt. But if I were new to this, I would get a song critiqued before, but professionally, as you say, before I demoed it or before I turned it into a master recording. Good point. And again, communication. All right, a few more things, and then we'll get some questions.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nance.
Well, we'll just take questions. Frank, just hold on to your question about co-writing, the co-writer and the demo and stuff like that when we're done. Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, the tools I typically use, and this is me, you got to find your own process and what works. Google Docs, and almost everybody in Nashville who co-writes uses Google Docs. Even when we're sitting in the same room, we use Google Docs. Now, why? Because we all have a record of what's being written. You can go back through all the iterations and the edits on that. If you ever want to go back and see, oh, shoot, we had a great line. Who wiped that out? You can go back and undo each version. Second thing is, sometimes when someone's singing something or on a roll, you don't want to interrupt them, but you want to put an idea before you forget it. It's in the Google Doc, and they can look down at the Google Doc and then they can incorporate that idea. I've had that happen hundreds of times, where I'll write a line and they'll try that line. They go, yeah, that's it. Or no, one word different from that. So Google Docs are great. And then that's a place to store your PRO information, your contact information. If you do sync, it's a place to store your meta tags, What's the BPM of the song? Who do they contact about it? What are the descriptors, the meta tags? You know, it's an up-tempo male vocal disco song, you know, or whatever. Zoom, obviously during the pandemic, a lot of co-writing went on over Zoom because it wasn't safe to be in the same room with people. And some professional writers are not going back into in-person writing rooms because it saves them in LA or in Nashville. It saves them 45 minutes of drive or 30 minutes of a drive or 2 hours of a drive to get together. And, you know, Zoom has its limitations. I still like in-person writes because there's a spontaneity and a no time lag, but Zoom, I've written, most of those 344 songs were written over Zoom that I wrote last year, and I co-wrote them. Voice memos, obviously, to capture ideas, both in the session, when somebody's singing something, then they go, wait a minute, what did I just sing? I record that, I mean, with their permission. Or if I sing something, I'll record it. Or on Zoom, I can mute myself and I come up with a different melody for that you know, line that they're singing. And then when they stop singing, I'll go back and listen to my voice memo and I'll, yeah, Jim, we'll get you in a minute. And, you know, I'll sing that. And so I'll have it captured. DAWs, which are your digital audio workstations, that's GarageBand, Logic, you know, Pro Tools, whatever. Sometimes it's great to learn to use those, even in a basic way, so you can do your home demo and it sounds better than just singing it into your phone. Songspace is a great place to store your songs. Disco is a great place, especially for sync, to store and pitch your songs. SoundCloud is a fine place to do it. Most people who are professional are using Songspace or Disco AC, songspace.com, to pitch their songs because there's tracking tools on them. You can see who's played the song that you pitched, which is kind of cool. And it stores your lyrics right there, along with several versions of the same song. If you've got different versions, the work tape, the, you know, disco version, the rock version, whatever it may be. Rhyming dictionaries. There are online ones. Master Writer is a subscription one that I use with rhyming dictionaries and has a bunch of other features. Spreadsheets to track the status and your names of your songs. After I started writing hundreds of songs a year, I got overwhelmed and I had to find places, ways to track the titles of my song, who I'd written it with, and things like that. All right, a couple more things and then we'll get to questions, Jim.
Okay,
Sorry.
this is related to what you just said.
Say it again, Jim.
Oh, just was related to that, just the slide we were on before. Is it
Yeah.
possible to just to ask a question
Go
about
back, yeah. Sure, sorry. Let me go back.
that? So I'm a poet. Sometimes they create, you know, straight up poems or spoken word things. Could you talk a little bit about how you were saying about so you're working together in the group, but I wasn't quite clear how you meant about audio recording when you're working as a team, but you have your own idea. So just tips about like recording. And then, sorry, the other one you just mentioned, it was so interesting. When you're working with the team, so some of the time you might crank out like 5 different styles with the same song. So you might do a disco version, a rock version, and blah, 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 blah. Could you say a minute or two about that? And then later on, I have a third question, but let me later on.
Yeah, that one's a little far afield, but the one about recording, I mean, I record things during the session on my phone because people forget the things they say or the things that they sing. I do, I forget them, but they do too. They go, oh, I had a really good line. What was that line? And nobody wrote it down. And so if they're on a roll, I'm pressing my voice memo. Yeah, I just use voice memo or, you know, whatever you use for that. There are various you know, phone applications, and they're really handy. I ask people's permission. Hey, I'm going to record. Is that all right? You know, because I don't want to miss anything. Some people record the whole 3-hour session, which is great, but I never go back through it. So I only record crucial moments, but I've missed things. I guarantee it by not pressing record. So if I'm on Zoom and they're doing something and I get a different idea, I don't want to interrupt them. So I mute myself on Zoom and I record my version of that line, the lyric line or the melody line. And I've done that hundreds of times. In person, it's harder to do that. I'd have to walk out of the room so I wouldn't interrupt them. So that's one of the good parts about Zoom. The other thing about doing different versions, that's too far afield from co-writing. So I'm going to skip that for now. All right. Tools for co-writing. Even if you're a lyricist, I think you need to know something about melody, because there's a rhythm to lyrics that go with melody. That's why it makes it different from poetry to me. And so I wrote a book with Clay Mills. It just came out a little while ago on melody writing. And I've had a bunch of lyricists say, I didn't think this book was for me because I don't write melodies, but I read it and I'm a better lyricist because of it, because it's talking about how you match the lyrics to the rhythm and the melody in hooky ways. So I think even if you're just a lyric person, you should learn about melody and learn how to meld your lyrics with melody in a better way. And so you'll never know if co-writing is. So I got a little echo there. You'll never know if co-writing is for you if you don't give it a try, and not just once. It's like I heard an old song. Hey, there's Billy Lee. And we're going to mute you, Billy. So you'll never know if co-writing is for you if you don't give it a try. I heard a joke once. Someone said, I don't believe in piano playing. I tried it once and it didn't work. And I think the same thing for co-writing. You've got to try it a few times because you're going to be a little uncomfortable if you haven't done it before. Okay. So once you get the hang of it and find your best co-writers, it can be magical and fun and addictive. I don't like to write on my own anymore. I do 1 or 2 a year, just keep the muscle, but to tell you the truth, I don't like it. It's not as fun. It's not as good. So I'll give Nancy this. I have a playlist of songs that my songs have been released. And I also have a free giveaway on furniture to add spice. So let me stop screen sharing, and then we can, Nancy, you want to kind of take over and either represent those questions that are in the chat that I missed because I was focused on something else, or open it up to questions and sort of monitor that. Oh, you're still muted. Well, you're not that good at lip reading yet.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, let us get to some of these questions that are in the chat. Okay, Frank's question is, if your co-writer says that they can't help with the demo, what are your options? Could say back out nicely and be like, oh, I understand, and then nicely back out from the co-write. What do you do? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a future thing. I would say, like if the person's not pitching at all, if they're not getting on for rewrites, if they're not participating in the demo, that's part of the equation I use to, do I want to write with that person in the future? For me, if I believe in the song enough, I'll pay for the demo. That's me. Because if I think it's a good enough song, I'm getting it out there, and they still get their money later. So it's not really fair, but I don't care about fair. I want to cut. So,
Okay.
If you have the money and you can do that, that's great. If you don't, then you move on from that song and write a different one with somebody else and somebody who will participate with your demos. Or you do your own home demos. Sometimes those are good enough to pitch. You have to be a pretty good singer and a pretty good player. If I were doing my own demos at home, I would make them as basic as I could. Guitar, vocal, piano, vocal, and get a singer on it that is good. I pitch songs that have pro writers on them who can't sing their way out of paper bags. And some people are okay with those demos, and other people go, man, you got to get a demo made of this. I can't pitch this. I can't pitch this to this artist. It's just not good enough. So, you just have to make that decision. But again, communication is the key, and that makes a difference in the future for me. If people are going to participate in pitching, revising a song, demoing it, they're just not going to participate, then it's just going to sit on my hard drive or their hard drive. What's the good of that besides practicing, getting better at writing?
Depends on how much you really believe in that song. That's for sure. And I mean, a lot of my co-writers are not able to afford it. And I've been in places where I couldn't afford it. So,
definitely.
And, a lot of times we'll say, well, we'll take the cost out of the back end if we get it placed. A lot of times
you can make an arrangement like that. Yeah, definitely.
But write it all down. Write it down.
Yeah. Get it all in writing. That's good.
And Frank had this other question, and I like this, and very much so. How do you tell a co-writer that based on the last co-write, you don't think it's a good idea to write anytime soon without burning a bridge or them taking it personally. Okay, most people are going to take it very personally. Okay, that's what I've
I have a
learned.
technique. I have a technique for this, though, Nancy.
Okay,
Because I am truly, I used to beg for co-writers because I didn't have any. And now I have way too many. I have an abundance of riches. And I'll say, I can do it, but I can't do it for 4 months, which is true. And then, if you only write every 4 months and it's not that, it's not that much time out of your time. And, if the next one goes really well, or, it's great, but sometimes I'll just say, I'm sorry, it's just not working for me. I'll just be really honest. It's just not working for me. I
Well,
had one guy recently get mad at, not recently, about a year ago, get really mad at me and talk to my co-writer, who I still wrote with, another co-writer, said, why doesn't Bill want to write with me? And he's like, it just doesn't work for him. And he goes, well, doesn't he think I'm a good writer? And he said, it just doesn't work for him. I don't know. You can ask him. And I'm like, and I said, if you want to tell him, no, it just wasn't working for me. I think he's a fine writer. I've heard some of his other songs, but he was really, really upset and wanted to get back in the room, and I didn't want to.
well,
Bill,
I would like to say on this topic that every time that I've said, hey, it just doesn't work for me, that person has just taken it so personally
Yeah.
that it is not worth ever doing that. I would like your solution of get back with them. Just say, your schedule's really busy right now, but I can, 4 months down the road, or something like that. I think would have been a better.
Hit me up in a couple of months.
Hit me up in a couple of
and I'll
months.
tell you if
Right.
if my schedule is freed up, and I know it's not going to free up in 3 months. I can guarantee it. It's not going to
Right.
free up because I'm
Well,
getting
Bill,
busy. Go ahead, Kevin.
Bill, this is how I settle that question, not only with co-writers, but also with demo singers. I mean, I worked with a number of demo singers who were very, very good, but I just point out that it's like casting for a part in a movie. Sometimes you need the right voice for the right song, and it's the same with the writing. Sometimes you need someone who writes this way rather than that way because of the way you're casting it. It's merely a creative decision.
Yeah, and again, that all sounds reasonable. And as Nancy said, people will still get hurt and pissed off because we're in creative things and it's easy to take it as a rejection. But yeah, I mean, that's a good way to say it. And it's straightforward. I mean, that's what I would do. I just try and tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, in the kindest way you can. And sometimes they'll still get upset. And that's just that. All
I
right,
ain't never telling
so-
anybody the truth again.
Smart idea. That's
No,
not
I mean,
diplomatic, huh?
And honestly,
Yeah, I know, but not the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Sometimes I really do have harsh opinions, so I got to soften those. It's like, you suck, and I don't want to write with you anymore. You don't want to say that, but I mean, more like Kevin said, it's just not, it's not working, and it's not the right match. And I say, I preempt this at the very beginning. I say, to me, songwriting, co-writing is like dating. The first session I have with people, I say, so let's not take it personally if we decide not to do this anymore.
I
It's
love
just like
that.
after first date. So I preempt it right on the first session. Occasionally I've forgotten to do that, and then I've gotten into some of those issues, but I've learned that over the years, and everyone goes, oh yeah, of course, because it could be they might not want to write again too. Sometimes that's the case.
And you know
So,
what I
all
like? When you talk about the magic, we're really looking for the magic. And if you're
that
not finding the
chemistry
magic,
and that magic, yeah.
maybe we can write a good song, but you don't feel the magic. Well, that's what we all need, right? Yes, we need magic.
Right.
So
And I don't want to write that many more good songs. I want to write
great
amazing
songs. That's what we need.
And you can't always do that, but you're swinging for the fences, and I want the team that I can swing for the fences. Natalie says, do you have any suggestions on how to handle when one co-writer doesn't like the melody and comes up with something different? Yeah, I'm right in the middle of that, actually. It's funny that you say that, Natalie, because we're rewriting this song with Greg Wilson and Michelle Canning. And we had a melody that was great. And then someone gave Greg feedback, you need to change the end of the story of this song. And it was a really highly placed person in Nashville. So of course, he said, if you rewrite this, this song will kick open the doors for you in Nashville. So like Greg's feeling all sorts of pressure. So he entirely rewrites the melody. The old melody was great. I mean, and he wrote it. It's not like we wrote it, he wrote it. And we're like, and the two co-writers are saying, Greg, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater here. That was a great melody. So we actually compromised. He said, I'm really hooked on this new melody on the first two lines. So we're like, we still prefer the original melody, but if you're really hooked on that, yes, it's a collaboration. And if he pitches that song to this monkey muck that thinks it's great, and the monkey muck says, wait, I like the original version, then we'll have our evidence. Until then, it's just opinion. But I've had people mess up my melodies, that is for sure. And then truly, if they're insistent on it, then that becomes one of those decisions. It's like, maybe I don't want to write with that person because I had a great thing to start with and they have messed it up. And maybe that's in my, no, let's write in 5 months. I'll see you then. You know, I'm not breaking up with them.
Okay, I just want to say, Bill, on those 2 lines, just have the demo singer sing it both ways.
Well,
then,
Greg is the demo singer, and we asked him to do that. Sing the original melody, sing that. He's not going for it. He's totally hooked on that new melody. But you know, I'm okay because he's going to play it for his guy, and his guy's either going to go for it or he's not. And it's not the only meeting he's going to have with that guy. So he can go back and say, oh yeah, sorry, we messed up. We're going to play the original melody. So, but that's the best solution, is to have the demo singer sing it. I've done that with lines. Sometimes there's a line in there and it has a swear word in it. And I'll say, can you have that person sing that, the demo singer, sing it without the swear word in there? We'll write another word. Or one of them, it's another one that I wrote with Greg Matthews, and it has a line that says, 15 years and 3 kids later, we haven't come down yet. And I said, the 21-year-old artist is not going to sing that line. And so we had the demo singer sing, all these years later, we haven't come down yet, because it was when they were dating as teenagers. So it works with all these years, but not 3 kids. 3 kids is not a couple of years later. So, you know, yeah, you just have them do the different versions of melody if you can get that. And usually demo singers will do that and they won't charge anymore. It's good. But yeah, sometimes that's just one of those creative things that you just disagree, and that's the co-writing thing. And it is always a compromise. Sometimes I think I would have done it like that, but that's okay with me. I don't love it, but we have 3 people in the room and 2 of them think that's better than I do. Now, in this case, 2 of us think the original melody is better, and Greg just can't do it. He just thinks the new melody is so much better. And we're like, okay, great. You know, then go for it. If you feel that, that's the other thing. I think whoever's the most passionate about it in the room, even if I feel strongly about it, if he's like, no, I am convinced this is a great melody, he's usually pretty flexible. But this one it means a lot to him. And I get it. And he's got the meaning. He has to feel confident. Maybe it's all a song. Yeah, we actually have written 3 versions of it. And then after we wrote the second big, massive change, he said, you know, I think we made a mistake. Let's go back to the original thing with just a change in the bridge. And it's like, oh, okay, good. But we did all that work, and now we know there's a possible other version, and it's a different song, but it wasn't as good. So,
well, Bill, I am your song plugger. Send the song to me and I'll tell you which is the best of it.
there you go. Well, that's it. I mean, and again, you have to get feedback, as you know, as we were hearing earlier, like Kevin said, it's from somebody who has some experience, not just your friends, not just your co-writers, somebody who's in the industry who, like, will have to, if Nancy has to go out and pitch it, she's not going to pitch it if it ain't great. It can't be good. It has to be great, because she'll get door slammed in her face and nobody will take her meetings anymore. You got to be careful. And people like that who know good songs, who have experiences. How do you read the room in multi-co-writer rooms? Any experience tips? Yeah, I don't know how to say it, but I was a therapist and I did couples therapy and family therapy. You're just sensitive, like there's obvious signs. Like I was saying, that one co-writer of mine, he doesn't say much, but when he says something, it's like, when E.F. Hutton speaks, he's really great when you finally get him to speak up, but I have to pull him out. It's like inviting him out and creating some space in the room. And sometimes I have to shut one of my co-writers up and I say, wait, like, you're going, I know, but I think so-and-so has something here. I can see it on their face. You read nonverbals if they're not talking. And also, once you get more than one session with them, you know their style. You just know their style. And you get sensitive to it, and so, yeah.
I mean, I think the most important skill any co-writer can have is the ability to join another person where they're at, to listen and really try it on what they say. Try it on. It might not be the right thing for you, but that is the skill you have to make this thing happen. Because if it's just, you can't let anything in, then the other two people aren't going to be able to get to you. So just be a joiner. Join it, but join the other people.
Join and empathy and sensitivity and reading the nonverbals. Jim, you've been waiting a long time, so will you unmute yourself and just ask your question?
Yeah, sure. There's two ways I could phrase it. I'm just trying to think of the way I really want to phrase it, but you might not like it as much. So if you're, let's say you have one person writing and they like the la 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 stuff, and then you have someone else is more coming from like a poetry background, and they're clashing about that. The way I really wanted to ask the question was, if you could just say a little bit. I mean, obviously people have talked a lot about that, of how like in songs you can say a lot more banal word versus a poem. So you could, I guess, answer it either way.
Yeah. So I just, it's sort of what we said about the demo, is just do it two ways. Do it with a la la and do it with some fancier lyrics, and then run them by some people, or run them by, usually in the room, you'll get it. Like someone will say, okay, sing that. And then you'll sing it and then sing this other. Oh, we like that one. We like number 2, door number 2. And so, that's the good news to me about a co-writing situation, because you got 3 people, typically, not always, sometimes it's 2-person co-write, and that's a little harder. If you got 3 people, there's going to be 2 people who have, and sometimes I'm just like, I'm 6 one, half dozen another, but most of the time I have an opinion, I have a response, but only if I hear it, only if I see it, so you just try it out. And again, nothing is carved in stone until that is released on the radio or on an album. You can always go back and fix it. You sit with it and you're sitting there for a week and you go, Ed is bugging me so much, I just can't take it. We need to go back in and change this. And if your co-writers say, no, we don't want to change it, then you know who to schedule with in the future.
And real quick, is there a book you like that talks about the difference between, a poem and then how la 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 can be in a song that you recommend, that talks about, the difference?
I'm sure there are. I've read almost every songwriting book, but none immediately springs to mind. I mean, Pat Pattison has something about that, the difference between poetry and lyrics. And Andrea Stolpe has some stuff about that too, from Berkeley. Both of those from Berkeley School of Music. They're pretty good on that. But I don't know, yeah. Pat Pattison has several books about it. Okay, and Canal, am I saying your name right? Will you unmute?
Yes, thank you. So I don't find myself really great at anything, but what I do, ever since you found the term for it, I find like I'm probably the blueprint guy. So I come up with ideas and I come up with chord progressions, and sometimes I'll finish it lyrically or whatever. But my problem is I'm not the greatest musician, so usually I'll go to my piano teacher and say, hey, here's the blueprint, but put your, expertise on it. And it's night and day. So he makes it that much more better. So my question to you is he now a co-writer, or is this more like a song for hire? Like, okay, you play the piano for me.
It depends on your arrangement. It depends on your arrangement, but that to me is co-writing. He's bringing enough to it. You're not saying, here's the song, will you just transcribe it on piano? That's a work for hire. If he's taking your idea blueprint and he's making melody and and arranging that and even writing the lyrics, either any of those is co-writing to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely co-write. I mean, there's a saying in Nashville, and it says, if you have 3 people in the room, a third for a word. If you got 1 word in there and that word makes that song a lot better, that's worth the price of admission. Now, it doesn't happen that often to just put 1 word in, but sometimes it does. So, you know, anybody who contributes to the creative in the song, and for me, the song is the melody and the lyrics and the structure. Who was the other Berkeley person? Patterson, Andrea Stolpe, I think is, how do you spell that? I don't remember how to spell her last name. Andrea Stolpe, I think.
You know,
Think that's
just
her name.
Pepe, ask your piano teacher how they feel about it. Offer it. If they don't care and they don't want it, that's fine. I mean, if they are at all a songwriter, they probably ought to be on it. If they're not registered with BMI or ASCAP, and then none of that's on their radar. And
Yeah, if they don't care for it, make it a work for hire. I mean, you make more money if the song succeeds, but I
right.
would usually give them an ownership of it for the reasons I talked about. Maybe they'll get it to somebody. Maybe they'll
Right.
be so excited about it, you know, they'll do a great demo for you. You know, I don't know. I would try and give ownership when people have creative input in it, because then they're invested in it, like I am.
Mhm. Yeah, I
But
like that.
if it's truly you hire them to play piano, that's a work for hire. But get that in writing.
Yeah,
Pay them
that's
some
usually the
money.
case. It's like I hire them to play the song for me, but their chords are richer than mine because I'm a basic player.
I would
So-
call that co-writing.
Okay.
That's me.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
great. Well,
Yeah.
we're getting about to be at the end of this
Yeah,
thing.
we are.
Anybody have any, burning question here? We okay? We're good. Okay, so I'm going to take that as a no. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Ask your question. Okay, all righty.
No, thank
We
you to
are.
Nancy for sponsoring this and making sure that, everybody had this. I truly was an individual writer, and I become a committed co-writer.
It's really cool. Okay, so here's a list of everybody who is signed up for tonight, and I am going to randomize this list, and whoever comes to the top is going to be the person, if they're here, is the person who's going to win this book. And I by the way, I did put this book, a link to this book on Amazon. And so let's see who wins this. RF.
Who is
Yeah.
RF? Is
He
RF
was
here?
here. He was definitely here. He was.
Speak up, RF, if you can, if you.
I'm
if you're
looking. Oh,
Do you need to be present to win?
yeah, because they'd have to give me their address so I can mail it to them. I thought
Right.
that was going to be
All right,
RG.
randomize again. You don't even have to show us, just randomize.
I don't think I'm on the list.
Okay. Who's
You're
anybody
on
here?
the list?
I
Yeah,
don't
you're on
think
the list.
Frank Verdijo.
You see
Okay,
him in there? You see Frank in there?
let's see here.
Frank
Frank,
doesn't want to.
all right, let me put your name on the
Wow, that
list.
was quick reading, Frank. I'm impressed.
Yeah, let me see. Let's go back. I'm going to go back. And I'm going to put your name right here. I'm taking Bill out. Frank. Let's see what happens. Frank. Okay, Frank.
We can't
Here.
see that. You're on a different
Oh,
screen,
okay.
but yeah, we'll
Okay.
trust you. You put it in.
Okay.
Trust her, Frank. She's pretty honest person.
Okay, here we go. Randomize.
Oh, there you're.
This is the same thing as last time. Okay, I'm going again. Let's just do it.
Randomize it again.
Ian
There
Blake
you go.
is
Ian, is Ian here right now? Nope,
I'm thinking no. Here we go
not
again.
here either.
Lila Jones, not here. Okay. Sully. Nope, no Sully.
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
back. Go back. Sully.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Okay,
Sully.
Sully.
Hi.
So Sully, you need to give Nancy your address so she can
Yes,
send
drop
to
it in
you.
the chat.
You can-
Okay,
yeah,
if
you
that's
Put it in the
okay.
chat and she can copy it out.
Okay. And
All right, Sully.
Sully. I'm so
You
happy.
show up and you never know what might happen.
Okay, where is it? Why am I not seeing it here?
I'm not seeing it in the chat yet. He's probably writing it in.
Okay. Oh, there we go. 31 Orchard Street. Where?
Well,
What
don't
city?
know. That's to you. Don't tell us.
Okay.
That's private to you, Nancy.
Oh, okay. Okay, one, two.
Sully's smart. Yeah, he doesn't want to get junk mail from any of us.
Okay. Hold on a second. Don't be leaving. I don't want to stop this.
No. So again, thank you to everybody. Just a couple of things. One is Nancy mentioned that I was on Oprah. That's my book that was on Oprah, because the people always ask, do one thing different. I was on years ago, and I've written 40 books. I just finished my 40th one, and I'm writing another one on sync with a sync expert. And I've just written another one, a self-help book, but that's not relevant for all of you.
Oh, come on.
Well, Sully, congratulations. So there's a video. Sorry, I missed this. There will be a video. There'll be a replay, Brian.
Yeah, we will. Well,
And so you should get a link to that replay, and there'll also be the PDF of the slides that I used. I'll send those to Nancy, and she can make those downloadable for you. And they'll have some of those details because I went really fast.
That was really fast. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get this address here. I
No,
could
no.
have done it
We had a
faster
lot
if
to
I would have
cover.
written it.
Yeah.
I just
Thank
should've
you
just-
all for taking the time to be here. And I really wish that you catch the addiction that I have to co-writing, because I was scared of it and not that good at it. And now I can't live without it.
You know,
I've written with a few people here. I've written with Billy and I've written with Nancy, I think. Those are the two people I've written with.
and lovely.
Oh yeah, don't tell anybody I've written with Billy. He's embarrassed to be associated with me.
Oh my God.
No, he's just kidding. He
He's
always
kidding.
gives me grief, and I give him grief, and that's part of our relationship.
Well, and I have written with Natalie, Bill, and Billy. And that's who I've written with in this group. And they
cool.
are lovely human beings, I tell you. Some of my favorite people in the world. And I do hope, go to discoversooner.com/events and you will. I don't know. I don't think I have it up there. But everybody who comes tonight, I will make sure that you get the information on our co-writing event. If you don't want to belong to Sooner, you don't have to belong to Sooner. But I think we're going to charge you something for the work that I put in to hook you up with people. So I would suggest belong to Sooner. And
Could you say what the organization is again? Could you explain the organization again?
okay, discoversooner.com. And we help songwriters make relationships with publishers and sync agents and people like that. And so you can go on there and check us
connect
out.
with co-writers and other musicians.
That's right. And we do a song pitch every other month. You can come in and pitch your song to me or whoever.
I'm always there. You'll see me on those song
That's right.
pitches.
And so, I mean, and I have to say, I have to say no a lot because honestly, I know where the bar is, but it takes a long time, I think, to